people online who do go by who do openly go by influencer, and I just see all the hard work that they put into it and the stress that it does on their minds. It's totally different for me. I just started telling stories via social media. I was just trying to get more people to have a library card to try to get them to go to make it to the next day. So I think that's for me why it's been overwhelming.
Good Monday morning. Have you ever wondered how successful and happy people got their starts? Every success story begins somewhere, often more humbly than you'd expect. I'm Leilani Brown, host of Your First Job, the podcast. In today's episode, we're joined by Mychal Threets, the librarian, literacy ambassador, and mental health advocate who many of us know and love. I personally am a super fan. Mychal's journey began as a homeschooled kid growing up in libraries, eventually landing his first job at the very place that shaped him. His passion for spreading library joy and his belief that everyone belongs in the library, just as they are, has made him a beloved figure. Join us as we explore the magic of libraries, Mychal's life since stepping away from daily library work, and yes, even his thoughts on Spirit Halloween. You don't want to miss this conversation. I too was a library kid, and I want to talk about loves of libraries, but I think that your career, just getting started, has taken a number of different twists and turns and arcs. And so I was like, we absolutely should talk to Mychal about his first job and his career experiences and sort of what it is to work in a library as a workplace. Because it is, for a lot of people, somebody I just spoke to today that I was bragging to that I was going to be talking to you, they were like, I so wanted to be a librarian. So before we get into that, the idea of being a librarian as a vocation or as a part of your career, tell me, what are you doing now? How would you describe the work that you're doing right now?
Yeah, that's a good question. I even I've tried to put it into words myself. I don't even know if I have like a particular description that I would put on a resume. But I think for me, I kind of jokingly call myself a non-practicing librarian in the last couple of weeks is what I've started saying. But then I'm like, no, I'm still very much a librarian. I still support libraries. I still go to libraries, talk to library people, talk with various leaders around the country about libraries. So I'm still a librarian. I still have my master's degree in library information science. Um, but what I'm doing now really is just going state to state, going to city to city, being very blessed, very lucky to attend conferences with librarians, with educators, with mental health professionals, talking about libraries, not just librarians, library workers, all the various positions, talking about the importance of literacy, trying to infuse joy, um, into higher rates for literacy amongst library kids, school kids, everybody, every living person, and also just kind of stumbling into mental health advocacy. I think just always having been open as possible, being vulnerable about mental health. It's kind of been like, no, now I'm talking more and more about mental health advocacy, and the most comments I get is based on if they don't ask me for the names of my cats, it's always all about the mental health. I would say at this point, it's kind of being a library ambassador, literacy ambassador, and then mental health advocate is what I seem to be working on these days.
Yeah.
But I'm not quite ready to call it. I'm sure this might be one of your future questions, but I'm not necessarily ready to call this my new career, or even a career. Really, just trying to focus on my own mental health, which is the whole reason I stumbled into this silly adventure of my current stage of life. I mean, I still think deep down, I'm always like, I would love to one day return to just quote unquote just being a librarian, be it being a children's librarian, being a marketing librarian. But for now, I just think that the impact I can have on libraries and literacy and mental health is better suited for what I'm doing as opposed to me working for one library system where they have to answer to the rules of their particular local government, state government. And you have a person like me who isn't going to be necessarily controversial, but who is going to talk about um, things that matter. That I'm going to try to be a voice for the voiceless. And I'm not necessarily a political person, but I do say things I think people are like, you didn't mean to be political, but I still has a stance. And I'm like, yeah, I can't do that so much if I'm
Yeah.
representing just this library system. But if I'm representing me, I'm just a library loving former library kid, now library grown up turned library adult.
Absolutely. There's so much in what you said. I'm going to try to unpack it piece by piece. I do love this ability that we all have, I think, to think of our careers differently and our work
Mhm.
differently, and even think about it as a portfolio of work. What occurs to me as you tell your story about where you are now, which is not where you'll be even a year from now, is that you had no designs to be an influencer, but you have found yourself to be both an influencer and an advocate around mental health. And what has that been like for you at the same while you are also pretty open about your own mental health management? What has that been like for you to sort of segue into these different careers and adjacent related fields?
I always laugh at the term influencer. Like I have nothing against influencers. I'm not like how they have their job. But to this day, I still don't see myself as an influencer. I get why people say you're an influencer. Like I read some articles, or like my mom or my dad or my grandmas will send me articles, and it's always like, oh, or librarian turned influencer, librarian turned TikTok, Instagram personality, and I'm like, it's not that's not who I am. I'm not an influencer. I'm still just a person, still just a librarian. Um, and for me, I think just because influencers are they're just so good at what they do that people don't understand like what goes into that video content creation. Is I've met very people online who do go by who do openly go by influencer, and I just see all the hard work that they put into it and the stress that it does on their minds. And I'm just like, it's totally different for me. I just started telling stories via social media. I was just trying to get more people to have a library card, know it's available to them at the library to try to get them to go to make it to the next day. So I think that's for me why it's been overwhelming. Just like trying to keep up with these various titles and trying to understand, like for like your first question, like what's your career now? What are you doing now? Trying to understand that for myself. So
How are you finding your ability? Because I think it's something we develop over time to say yes and to say no. And we're so grateful that you said yes to us, but the requests have to be coming in. How are you deciphering or filtering the opportunities and trying to balance out what you're trying to manage in terms of your own mental health? Because you left with a very clear focus to do so, and now the opportunities are just coming at you.
Yeah, saying no is so important. Like I don't want to say no all the time. Like like some people have like a year of yes. It's not like I'm trying to have a year of no. I think I've joked about that before, but really it's just like you said, it's been a learning experience about getting there. And like just having so many kind people who are like, oh, I love that you do this. Can you talk about this? Can you come to this? Can you come to that? And I would love to do as many things as possible, but just for
Sure.
my own mental health state, just can't do that. There's also just not enough time in the days, in the weeks, in the months, in the year for me to do everything. So really, it is for me, just especially because it's really just me. I don't have like a team of people who work with me. Like you may have emailed me thinking that someone from my team would email you back, but it's just me behind all these screens, behind all these emails, just doing the best I can. I think for me, that's what I realized. I think like some people like will respond to me when I respond, and they're like, "I didn't think you'd ever even see this. I didn't think you'd respond." Um, so I try to keep that in the back of my head, and just being like, I think at first I was like, I have to respond to all these inquiries, even if I have to say like, "Oh, I can't. I'm so sorry. I can't do this." I
Yeah.
realize it's easier for me not to ignore them, but to just realize that I can circle back to use a former
Right. At
library
another
term.
time.
I can always circle back and get them to say, "Hey, so sorry it took me so long to get back to you. This is what's going on in my life." But I'm also very honest, very vulnerable, even in email correspondence, saying, "Oh, I'm having some hard days. Sorry it took me so long." And people are like, "Oh, appreciate the transparency. Appreciate you talking about what's
Yeah.
going on." So as much as I'm like, yeah, I want to. I think having mental health struggle is very much a people pleaser attitude,
Are
kind of a
we all?
syndrome. Yes, just exactly, just being a
So many
human
of us
being.
are. Not everybody, but a good number of us
It's
are.
it's it's a human trait. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's talk about work and workplace. What was your first job?
My actual first job was at I was just talking with my dad about this the other day. It was actually at Spirit Halloween store. So a seasonal job. Just being very young, but I wasn't even old enough to drive. So my mom and dad had to drop me off. I think actually me and my brother got hired there. My little brother got hired there at same time. So we almost had almost every single same shift, and they would just take us there, and we would just set up the Spirit Halloween store, and just so that was only a few months, but that was my first like job outside of mowing lawns, lemonade stands, was working at the Spirit Halloween store. But then my first like non like seasonal like 2 to 3 month job was working for my local theater.
Okay, working with
Yeah,
theater people
pick it,
are
yep,
special
picking up pop
people.
picking up popcorn, cleaning up spills,
Yes.
handing out tickets.
When you think about those experiences, what do you think your expectation was to work, and what was your motivation to work in those early jobs?
The motivation, I don't think I didn't have any feelings of thinking that like, "Oh, yeah, I'm rich, I can afford anything I want in life." I think that would have been when I was 16, so that was almost 20 years ago, give or take. So I think the minimum wage then was about 750 or so, or that's how much I was making
Okay.
at the theater. So
It
working
wasn't a
not
path to
working
wealth coming out of the
it
Spirit
it wasn't.
Halloween store.
I wasn't what didn't go from Halloween to being a general manager of the theater. It was very much,
Mogul.
"Okay, this is a few more shillings for my wallet, a few more movies to see." I think it was more so the movie perk than it was the the
Okay.
actual, salary compensation. But no, I think for me, I think I just wanted to work just to seeing my parents work so hard. I was like, oh, I just let me see if I can help out, do a little bit, but also just trying to getting older, trying to be an adult, trying to save money for gas for my car, and just
Mhm.
experience different things. I think I was still homeschooled at the time. So just trying to, I had a good chunk of friends, even being homeschooled, just from neighborhood kids, from playing sports. But I think, you know what, just trying to meet new people outside of my regular
Routine.
recurring circle of, yeah, exactly, recurring routine
Yeah.
circle of friends.
So then you find your way back to the library and you become a bookshelver, returning the books for, people like me who take out a whole bunch of books and take them down and leave them on. But how did you find your way back to the Solano County Library?
Yes, Solano County Library, in the right between San Francisco and Sacramento.
Is
I
that a
got
big
back there.
library?
It's
Is it
considered to be
huge?
a medium system. So there are nine different branches, and then there's a law library, whereas you have like San Francisco and the LA libraries that have 20 to 40 different branches. So nine branches is much smaller than that, but it's not necessarily a small system.
Mhm.
So I think I got back to library really by accident. I think I kind of stumbled into library work. I mean, after Spirit Halloween, after the theater, just a lot of odd jobs in between the ages of 18 and 23, just trying to experience life while going to junior college. School just wasn't for me at that time, just because of things in life, because of mental health struggles. Um, some things failed, and then I went back to the library. I went back to the place I always felt safe. I always felt comfortable. I was like, oh, I don't know what my next steps are gonna be. I think I didn't. I think I just got discouraged just being at my mom and dad's house so often. I was like, I'm just sitting here. I don't know what's next. I was like, let me at least go to the library, read some books while I try to research, figure out my next steps, what might be in store for me. And then, like, to this day, I always tell people, like, I have no idea. I didn't consciously get like on a Monday. I didn't say, you know what, tomorrow I'm going to go to the library. I'm going to ask them if I can work for them, how I can be there. I was literally just at the library, Solon County Library, and I just said, hey, how do you work for the library? Can I work for the library? And the person at the desk, she already knew what I was going to ask. She had the website pulled up. She showed me where to go. She showed me the URL. I applied. I applied as a shelver, as entry level as you can get. Um, and I got hired a couple months later. So really, just feeling safe and comfortable is how I became a shelver. I never, like, again, I didn't wake up one day and thought, maybe this is a job I can have. It really was just a something where I was like, oh, maybe they'll say yes. Are they even hiring? I was like, I don't even know if they're hiring. I don't believe. I'm very hopeful that in my mind, I never thought they were all volunteers. That's a common misconception that library people get.
Misconception.
It's always like, oh, are you a volunteer? It's like, nope, we work 20 hours a week, 40 hours a week, because people just see library workers sitting at the desk, and they just think, oh, you check in books, you take out books, the other items all day
Yeah.
long. And there's so much that goes into it, which I'm sure we'll slightly get into. But yeah, that's how it happened. I just happened to ask the right person on the right day. She showed me how to apply, and then I got hired and fell in love being a shelver. To this day, I think that's probably my favorite. Much as I love being a children's librarian, um, I love working for the marketing department. Probably the best time of my library life was working for Sullivan County Libraries marketing department. Being a shelver was my favorite job. I think one, it was just the hours, just working 4 hour days, sometimes 6 hour days,
Yes.
19 hours a week. I was like, someone wants to pay me the same salary for 20 hours a week, 4 hour shifts.
You'll take it.
I'll do it for decades and decades. And but just so much fun. I mean, you see the hold, you see what people are putting on hold. You're like, oh, maybe I want to read that book.
Right.
You're surrounded by books. You're touching books. You're helping people as best you can. Because they see
Yeah.
you, they don't know who the difference between a librarian and a library shelver unless they see unless they see your work badge or your name tag.
Yeah.
But you still get a chance to be your front and center. To me, they're some of the hardest working people in the library because they're the ones who put stuff on the shelves and make sure it's
Mhm.
tidy. They still answer questions because they're who the community sees first. So,
And they're the
yeah, being
heroes for that hard to find
oh
book
yes,
sometimes. You know, and
they are.
you'd be looking for something and you say, I'm looking for this one thing, and like, I know exactly where it is. So you're
It
the
is.
superhero of the library in many cases. When we
Yes.
first interacted or met virtually
Uh-huh.
online, it was after your response, which was so kind and so joyful, but instructive about uh, what it takes to be a librarian. There
Ah,
was a woman who posted something to say, I can't believe that you just can't be a librarian. And you were like, actually, it takes these years of study, and there are different types of library science. And I just thought it was so kind and joyful and a good way to gently correct the misunderstanding of everything that's involved in library science and being a librarian. I also think that you've done an incredible job of explaining to people how library is a place of community, a place to support, a place for people to feel safe, particularly when and if they are unhoused, a place where you can apply for a job or you can borrow the strangest of things. What have been like lawnmowers?
yeah.
What are some of the things that have most surprised you as you've moved into further into um, being in the world of the library? What are the things that you probably would not have expected at, let's say, 20, uh, that you are pleasantly surprised by or just sort of have caused you to think differently about the library?
Thinking differently about the library, about surprising things. I think just like the sheer amount of the actual difficulty that it is to be a library worker, to be a librarian. Like I always like tell people like people see what I do, and I always tell people like what I talk about is the most joyful, the happiest parts about being at the library, about being at the library work. Like I could talk about like the incidents that I had to deal with as a children's librarian, as a supervisor, but I'm like that's not what the library needs. It needs to be a joyful place because 99% of the time it is a joyful place. Like there is that 1% where things happen, where the rules get broken. But I think it's to me it's just library is so much like the world. Like the world is there's so much more positivity in the world, but the negativity, the trolls, those loud negative voices just stand out. Like you have millions of people in the world, but you have 5 to 20 very, very loud people who are very negative, and they're just so loud that it stands out even amongst the millions of positive vibes and everything else. It's the same thing as the library. Like just there are so many more positive, so many more joyful moments than there are negative things. But I think that's what people have echoed to me is they're just like, oh yeah, you made me remember joy again. Like I think for a lot of library grown-ups, they bring their kids back to the library is what they tell me because like, yeah, I remember being at the library. I remember just being there, just being
Yeah.
with friends or like waiting for my mom and dad to pick me up and just talking with the librarian, finding new graphic novels, falling in love with Beverly Cleary, with Louis Sacker, with the Chronicles of Narnia, with Bud Not Buddy, with Matt Christopher books. with their cooking, whatever it is. Like they're just falling in love with it. So I think that that's what stands out to me. I think it brings it back to the first part that you said about, and that's why we're talking about the difficulty of being a librarian, of being a library worker. It is that's why when that person made their video saying, "Oh, library, like what does it take to be a librarian? Like why they need the degree? Why do they?" I think she even said just a bachelor's degree. She didn't know about the master's degree. She was like, "Why do they
Right.
need a bachelor's degree?" Because she was trying to apply for jobs, which I think people don't know much of. They don't recognize like the context of her video. Is she was like, "Yeah, I wanted a job. I saw libraries, and I was like, oh, you have to have
Sure.
a bachelor's degree to do that." And then just like everybody else, I mean, just like me, you see
Yeah.
someone at the library desk, you're like, "Oh, all they do is check out books, check in books. It must be very important. Someone has to do the job, but." What else is there to do? What are they doing behind the scenes? And that is essentially what she was asking. And
Any advice for aspiring librarians out there who are, might watch this and or hear this and say, okay, I want to work in a library or work in this area because you're touching so many different areas.
So my main advice is to people is always to volunteer at the library, actually volunteer, get your foot in the door and meet library workers, get an entry level job, become a shelver. There are library jobs where you don't need a bachelor's degree, you don't need the master's degree, and you can become for my system it was called library assistants. You're the person signing people up for library cards, helping them find different materials, various things behind the scenes. But that's possible because then you see what the world is. You see what library land is like. You make library friends. You're able to ask questions. You're able to say, "Hey, so I want to be a librarian. Like, what would be your advice?" Because every library
Mhm.
system is a little bit different. So if you go talk to your local library staff, they'll be able to guide you far better than I can. But I've always found conversation across multiple states. That volunteering, that entry level job is true across all library systems.
Yeah.
That's a perfect entryway.
I do want to go back to something that you said, which was, a library as a resource for job seekers. So even if you're not looking to be a librarian, how are libraries supporting people who are looking for careers and looking for their first opportunities or looking for career pivots? Even how is the library a resource center for that?
Well, I mean, libraries are community hubs, so it's a place where everybody comes to. They'll put up their job, like the actual job flyer. Some people still have help wanted signs, job wanted flyers. They'll put up on our community bulletin boards. Oftentimes, I mean, you in a lot of library systems, you need a library card to get on the computers, but so often that we're just like, here's a one-time pass, and we just give people one-time passes every day just because of various barriers to getting a library card. We're always going to do everything we can to get people a library card, but we realize some people, it's a privacy issue. Some people, it's the whatever
Mhm.
going on in their mind may just be like, I can't get around this. I just can't get past this point. So we're like, okay, here's a one-time pass, and they get on the computer,
Yeah.
and they apply for jobs. They go on Indeed.com. They go to LinkedIn. They update their profile. So they're using library computers, library resources to actually submit applications. So often, like that's been some of my favorite days. And like when people would come by the library for months on end, applying for job after job, going to interviews, and they're gone for a couple days, and they come back all proud and enthusiastic, they're wearing their suit. Like oftentimes after their latest interview, or just getting home, getting the call, they're like, "Guess what? I got the job. I did it.
That's
Thank you
amazing.
all so much. It's because of this place." And it's just like it's just a computer, but it's a computer that they don't have. It's something where they're like, "I don't know how to apply. I don't know how to." Like so many people are, I mean, illiteracy just in reading and writing, but people are computer illiterate. They don't even know how to use the mouse. Like, they will it's almost as if they're using their wrong hand for their right hand. They just don't know what to do. So library people are say, "Okay, move to the next sign." There's often times where we can't tell them what to do just because of rules, but like we can't tell you how to apply, but we're like, yeah, click this button if you want to type the letter A. You press enter to get to the next line. You press tab, and that's things people don't know, and that's what library
Right.
workers do. They're sitting there, they're helping people navigate the keyboard, navigate the computer, so that they can make that application online. Which is as much as employers put out those help wanted signs in physical paper, they still only accept digital
Digital
applications. So
application.
there's also job fairs at the library. So there'll be employers who just come, they set up tables and they say, I'm looking to hire somebody, and people will come up and they'll just say, "Hey, are you really hiring?" And they'll have the interview right there on the spot. There's job clinics, there's job workshops where people come in. They help people with their resumes, with their cover letters. They help them how to improve their interview techniques, and that's all just at the library. It's not always library people, but we just say, yeah, come on in. We would love for you to do that program, to do that workshop, just because we want our community members to have the best possible chances to succeed in life.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing a more modern version of what we believe a library to be and a more modern version of a librarian. As we wrap up, where can we find you next and how can we, along with our listeners and viewers, support your work as you move forward? And I'm really excited about PBS and everything else that is to come for you. But where can we follow, and amplify the work that you're doing, Mychal?
Find and follow me. I remain chronically online on all the all the various platforms, the Instagrams, the threads, the TikToks, the Facebooks. I'm on all of those, either under my name, Mychal Threets, funny way I spell Michael, that my mom and dad decided, Mychal. But also my typical username is Mychal3TS. Again, Michael Mychal, the number three, TS, T as in Tango, S as in Sam. It's just a fun way of my last name, and then just constantly trying to spread library joy, get people back to the library, getting their very own library card, the most important card in your wallet. Um, Next steps, next things I know about are I'm just having so much fun with a PBS partnership that you alluded to. Being PBS's resident librarian is a dream come true. I was a library kid, homeschool kid, and a PBS kid. Grew up on Reading Rainbow and Mister Rogers, so it's so rewarding. It's such a blessing.
Mychal, our admiration has only grown for you through this conversation. I cannot thank you enough. I hope that I can be in your internet circle of friends, and I hope to meet you in
Absolutely,
person one day soon. I might have to track you down with all of your
please,
travels as you make it through the states. But thank you again
absolutely, I would love that.
for being part of our podcast and joining your first job and talking to us and sharing your story. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Now maybe someone will choose the library as their first job.
Maybe they will. Maybe they will. Your First Job is a production of Giant Steps LLC, a company working at the intersection of strategy, culture, career, and education. I'm Leilani Brown, CEO and host of the show. Many thanks to our executive producer, Sam Osborne, our production team at Relics Corps, and to Maxwell Brown for composing and producing our show music. You can learn more about our company and the podcast by visiting giantstepsllc.com. Thank you for listening.